Oh man, it's Naruto. It may be hard to remember, but there was a time when this was new and fresh and really cool. A time before this, and this, and oh my god, oh my god, me sick. I've loved this series since I was a kid, and despite the fact it turned into a bloated mess by the end, Part 1 and the first half of Part 2 are very solid and entertaining pieces of story. On top of the unique setting of ninjas with cool powers in a pseudo-modern world, Masashi Kishimoto does such a good job at writing characters that you actually care about.
I like 'em big.
And nearly all of them give so much entertainment and heart to the story. Nearly. How could you do this? You're making me feel like I'm supposed to like this, but I don't. Sakura makes me feel like this. And I want to get into that. I want to take this character through the story in context to figure out where it all went wrong. Really get my hands dirty. The setting, 2001. Look at these cool main characters. Let's find out some things about them. Naruto, he's the main character, the outcast who wants to earn everybody's respect by becoming the village leader, Hokage, so everyone will accept and acknowledge him. He has mastered the forbidden technique, the multi-shadow clone jutsu, and has the nine-tailed fox demon sealed away inside of him. He wishes to emulate the fourth Hokage, who's actually his father. By the end of Part 1, he masters the multi-shadow clone jutsu, how to walk up trees, how to walk on water, the summoning jutsu, how to draw the power of the nine-tailed fox, somewhat, and the Rasengan. Sasuke is the ninja genius at the top of Konoha's graduating ninja class. His family was slaughtered by his older brother, and he's dedicated to getting revenge. Due to his lineage, he possesses the Sharingan, and is capable of using fire-style techniques, as well as dealing with opponents far beyond the level of his peers. During the series, on top of the fire techniques he already knows, he learns how to walk up trees, how to use the base Sharingan, how to walk on water, Rock Lee's base combat skills, the Chidori, how to use the curse mark to stage 2. Sakura is a pretty girl. Her parents are regular. Literally, her every thought is about Sasuke because she thinks he's hot. Her specialty is chakra control, which is a big help because in Part 1 it helps her learn how to walk up trees, how to heal a fish. I wonder how these characters would deal with an extremely deadly ninja mission. The Land of Waves arc. So the gang's off to the first mission where... Oh, look at that, it's over. And Sakura was the only person who did nothing cool. If you try hard enough, you can nearly forget she's there. And really, what did we expect? Her only defining feature was being a 12-year-old girl with bare minimum combat training. But that's okay. No, really, it is. Hey, nobody was ready for the Land of Waves arc. Sasuke's a ninja genius, and the only reason he survived was because Haku explicitly chose not to kill him. Naruto surviving his encounter with Haku was due to the powers of the nine-tailed fox, something he as a character has no real control over yet. This chick's not prepared. In their previous mission, they were literally catching cats. Now she's watching a war criminal decapitate underworld Bill Gates with his teeth. But they did all learn how to walk up trees, and Sakura actually learned it the best, so gold star there, and we'll check those off. Man, we are just blowing through these. So we can write her a pass for this arc. The fact that she's so forgettable actually works in her favor. She doesn't get in the way, and only by the time it ends do you realize she hasn't done anything. But still, Sakura's the least interesting out of the main cast by far, and it's kind of laughable when you get to the end of the Land of Waves and you realize she's been literally standing around an old man the entire time. But at this point, it's really hard to hate her character. It's easy to forget how light the tone of these early chapters are. A lot of focus was put on comedy, and a lot of character moments don't take themselves very seriously. Sakura may have nothing going on, but she fits into this light tone well, as her presence makes for easy comedic setup with Naruto and Sasuke. Also, at this point, she isn't part of any serious or emotional parts of the story, so she just kind of blends in with whatever the tone is and makes her point not to stick out too much. But Sakura's running into some problems, because the story keeps going. She has no fighting ability beyond being a 12-year-old with bare minimum ninja skill. Anyone above this level completely invalidates her, and it's becoming increasingly clear that the ninja missions are going to stay on the fighting the most dangerous people on the planet end of the mission spectrum. Something has to change with her, and fast. The next arc begins, and Sakura is hesitant to participate in the Chunin exams, the very dangerous war games that they aren't ready for. She doesn't think she can do it at all. That is until Sasuke gives her a minor pep talk. She likes Sasuke. He's hot and very skilled and hot. This is a very minor story beat, but Sakura's doubts and decision to go forward anyway hints that maybe this will be the arc where her character falls into place within her ninja team. Maybe the fish will be healed. Okay, it's part 1 of Naruto. The Chunin exams start. The team is in over their heads again and they know it, and a question lingers in the air. How will Sakura handle it this time? Picture this. All ninja teams are in the woods hunting each other. Sakura is the only person on guard while Naruto and Sasuke are unconscious. But oh no! Sakura's the only person on guard, and Naruto and Sasuke are unconscious. Strong enemies appear. And at this point, she can... She gets saved by Rock Lee, but he gets all beat up. And she's getting beat up real bad. She's getting held down and chastised by the only other girl, who harshly criticizes her for caring more about her long hair than actually doing something useful, which, considering all she's done up to this point, oh man, it's a pretty scathing critique of her character. From this, Sakura, frustrated with her ongoing inability to do anything, cuts off her hair, which has become symbolic of her weakness, and declares that she will no longer only watch Sasuke and Naruto from behind. She'll catch up to them, and they'll be able to stand side by side. This moment's great. Kishimoto is addressing this character's problems directly. Now Sakura knows that if she wants to do ninja fights for a living, she has to be able to actually fight ninjas. Now she's aware of her biggest flaws and promising us that she, Sakura, the mess that can't do anything, will change.
Your lifelong dream come true!
Wow! Take off your blindfold, Goofy. Don't you get it? She isn't gonna do anything. Part 1, post-Sakura character moment number 1, stagnation, semicolon, she can, comma, but she doesn't. Nearly immediately, Sakura gets saved by 4 other people, including one of the people she's sick of being saved by all the time. But that's okay, because now she finally has a character motivation outside of Sasuke's bootay. Get stronger, be useful. And Kishimoto makes a point of emphasizing her drive to do so. So, okay, that moment was pretty cool, but what's the next thing that Sakura does? She fights Ino, who we find out through flashbacks is Sakura's rival, and someone she always kind of looked up to. Kind of like what Sasuke is to Naruto. When they were kids, Ino was shown at multiple times to be more confident and capable than Sakura, who was too weak to do anything for herself. Which, should sound familiar. Sakura grows tired of this dynamic, and when finding out that Ino also has a crush on Sasuke, she decides to make Ino her rival and declares that she won't lose to her anymore. This small narrative between these characters has been slowly sprinkled in over the course of the Chunin exams. Now it's come to a head. Sakura finally has a chance to prove herself after her declaration, and Ino, the person who reminds her of her past weakness, stands in her way. It's the perfect setup for Sakura to resolve the problems that have been plaguing her character from the beginning. Wow! What ensues is considered to be the worst fight of the entire series.
Sakura.
They punch each other in the face for literally 10 straight in-world minutes until Ino says, "Aha! I'll use my secret mind control. You fool, that jutsu sucks. I can easily dodge and you'll be immobilized. Not so fast. I've immobilized you." And then she gets in Sakura's brain. She's about to win, but Naruto calls out to her, and Sakura kicks her out. And then they punch each other and they both pass out. It's a draw. They both lose. It's played off as kind of a win for Sakura because she held her own against Ino, and Kakashi makes a point of noting her growth, but my whole body is numb. I can't feel anything anymore. Let's explore that. Ino as a rival. The rivalry between these two fleshes out the idea that Sakura has been over-reliant on others her whole life. Her decision to step out from under Ino's wing and make her into a rival instead of her friend/caretaker while spawning from a cheap love triangle around Sasuke is a choice that will make her become stronger as a person. That fits perfectly with what her whole character is now about. Rivalries are an excellent source of growth and conflict in shonen, and creating one for a weak character is a great idea if overcoming their weakness is the basis of their motivation. Romantic competition is not a complex or very deep motivator on its own, and despite how much of a red flag it is on paper that Sakura leaves her best friend because of a shared crush, her decision is ultimately one that was born out of a desire to be strong. If Ino was going to save Sakura every time she got in over her head, she would never grow. If she never grows, she has to rely on her team to carry her forever, and she'll never become the person she wants to be. While it can be seen as a red flag that Sakura warps their relationship around Sasuke, there's nothing inherently wrong with introducing us to Sakura and Ino's rivalry through this setup. It gets the basis of their dynamic across easily. These characters are in conflict because they're competing for the same thing. Got it. It's how he introduces us to the relationship between Naruto and Sasuke. Pretty girls like Sasuke and don't like Naruto, which helps give the impression that Sasuke's at the top, where Naruto wants to be, and Naruto's at the bottom, which makes Naruto want to prove himself, so he becomes hostile. And then they kiss. The love triangles in both cases are used to set up conflict and give us some information about the characters, and in both cases I believe it's successful. This may seem like a pedantic point, but I want to be clear that the way that Ino and Sakura's rivalry dynamic is introduced and the constant mildly annoying squabbles they have about who gets a turn smelling Sasuke's sweaty body is not the problem. Ino herself is the problem. Ino is a terrible rival for Sakura because she is basically just Sakura. Giving Sakura a rival is an idea that works in theory, but Ino is not that rival. She has the same strength as Sakura, except she has one shitty technique instead of none. So it can appear like she's more capable than Sakura, but functionally she's not. Ino loses hard to every other person in the Chunin exams. Her only technique can't be used unless her opponent is completely immobilized. And even then, if her opponent just doesn't want to be brainwashed hard enough, it won't work. Ino as a rival is set up to be the way that Sasuke is with Naruto. She's repeatedly shown to be more confident and skilled in areas Sakura was insufficient in. And she's someone Sakura wants to be seen as equals those two. The thing is, that dynamic had already changed by the time this fight happens. They're not kids picking flowers or getting mildly bullied anymore. They're in a world where they are running into the world's most dangerous people on a regular basis. A world where this shit happens. A world where this Sakura couldn't cut it. Ino isn't some powerhouse that everybody respects for her ability. Ino's the weakest member of the weakest team. She can't do anything without a lot of help from other people. The only time we see her come into a solo conflict, the guy just leaves because he was embarrassed by how pathetic she was. That's not the person who's going to inspire Sakura to grow beyond what she is now. That is who Sakura is now. If her rival is just a reflection of her pre-haircut self, right down to being a pretty girl whose interest in Sasuke outweighs any other goals or motivations they have in their life, that person will not inspire the growth that Sakura needs. Making Ino embody so many of Sakura's flaws derails the expectations we have for Sakura's growth as a character. Sakura not being able to overcome Ino and not moving on in the tournament cements the idea that she's weak and can't succeed on her own, because she couldn't defeat someone who's also weak and can't succeed on their own. Kishimoto tells us Sakura did a good job drawing against Ino, but what he really showed us was Sakura failing to overcome herself. And this is just after showing us that Sakura surpassing herself is literally all she wants to do. She knows she isn't good enough. She knows she wants to change, and then we see her fail and nothing comes from it. Everyone is impressed with her, even though her flaws were on full display. Oh wow. Even Sakura has grown this much. Dude, the only strategy she could think of was punching Ino in the face. Fucking Naruto made better plans, and he's a fucking idiot. This entire thing, this little subplot about Ino and Sakura and their rivalry up to their fight, it totally could have worked. But with one crucial change. Ino should have never been Sakura's rival. She should have been a roadblock. She should have been what Kiba was to Naruto, a strong opponent that reminds them of their weak past that they overcome and then they move on to a bigger challenge. Defeating Ino would have made the perfect jumping off point for Sakura, because Ino represents the weaknesses of Sakura's past and the weakness of her present. This was Sakura's chance to prove herself capable of stepping beyond who she was, and is, and finally achieving something that would mean real progress toward her actual goal of being as capable as Naruto and Sasuke, thus driving her character forward in a satisfying way. And it makes sense for Sakura to win. Ino's never gone through what Sakura has. She didn't see evil Bill Gates get his head chewed off. Ino has never knowingly jumped into a bunch of throwing knives so she could get a drop on a stronger opponent. Sakura's kind of hardcore now. Hardcore in a way that we never see Ino emulate. Sakura's determination and experience are more than enough of a win condition against someone with the same skills but without either. But she doesn't defeat Ino. She draws. She overtakes who she was as a kid, but she doesn't overcome who she is now. Her development is sacrificed for the sake of making her rivals with the weakest possible candidate. She was the weakest, now she's become tied for being the weakest. So, functionally, she's made no progress. Her character is stagnating. And the narrative never addresses this. It's content to let Sakura be this way, and not really call her out for flubbing a fight against the weakest opponent she could hope to get, because she couldn't figure out anything more complicated than punching her in the face over and over and over and over. It makes it seem like the story's okay with the idea that she can't become stronger than who she is, even though that's literally all she wants. Sakura's rivalry doesn't enhance her story, it doesn't give her motivation to grow, it doesn't challenge her in a new way, and worst of all, it comes at the expense of her character. Theoretically, this fight wouldn't be so bad in a different context, but not the context this story takes place in. Not the context of reaching new heights and becoming comparable to Naruto and Sasuke. After all, being compared to Naruto and Sasuke is the metric that Sakura set up for her own success. So let's compare. These two won their respective fights. They struggled just as hard as Sakura, if not more, against much stronger opponents. Naruto couldn't beat Kiba outright, so he had to get crafty and think on his feet to pull off the win, using inspiration from Sasuke. Sasuke could barely use his chakra or techniques at all, and he still won, using inspiration from Lee. Both move on to challenge arguably the strongest people in the entire exam. Sakura has nothing to show for the entirety of the Chunin exams, save for some scattered moments of determination, and she never actually learns anything from her encounters. The gap between her and the rest of the team has grown even wider from where they started. She declared that she would move forwards, and then didn't move at all. The dynamic that plagues her whole character, the one where these two fight and grow, and Sakura doesn't fight and doesn't grow, does not get remotely resolved due to this fight. And that's not even the worst part. Losing the tournament gives her nothing to do in the story. Right after the initial fights conclude, the entire narrative turns into a month-long training arc for the people who move on. This is the month that Naruto and Sasuke spend training. I wonder what Sakura does with this month. Answer nothing! The only time we see her, she has an admittedly nice moment where she leaves a flower for Lee in the hospital, but the only reason she was in the hospital in the first place was to fawn over Sasuke. I mean, it doesn't seem like anyone else who lost in the preliminaries trained or did anything cool during this month either, but like, why didn't she anyway? She wants to be stronger. She told us she wants to be stronger. What was stopping her from training? It's a really strange decision, and it's terrible for her character. She's conflicted about being a weak ninja, and then had an entire month to herself in a town full of professional ninjas, and she doesn't do anything. So then she stays the same for a whole month, and shows up to the tournament. And then some crazy things happen. Naruto and Sasuke grow to absurd heights hitherto unseen. We see ninja combat at the highest level so far. Naruto reaches the heart of the antagonist, and Sasuke's connections with Orochimaru are growing slowly in the shadows. Drama, action, spectacle! Ooh, this part's cool. Do you know what the coolest thing Sakura does in the Sand Invasion arc is? She wakes up from a mild genjutsu meant to immobilize regular people, and the second she's actually involved in regular combat, she's defeated instantly. You want to know the best part? That's it. That's it for part 1. That's all she does. That's all. Till she heals a fish, and fish doesn't happen until here. She did not take a single proactive step regarding her training for over 150 chapters after her fight with Ino, and almost 200 after her decision to get stronger. But okay. But at least, it happens, you know? Like, her story, it went somewhere, right? I don't care about her story. I don't care about you. Wait, I don't care about you. Why? Kakashi is always late. For everything. Important events, and even the meetings he personally sets up. The reason he's always late is because everyone he's ever loved is dead, and he visits their grave every morning. He always stays too long, because he can't stop thinking about all of his regrets. Did you know that Sasuke was forced to witness every single murder Itachi committed against their entire family twice? Naruto never knew his parents, and spent his entire life being emotionally abused by everyone he'd ever met. His days were full of isolation, confusion, hatred. His sense of empathy comes from a deep understanding of pain and a desire to truly help others. Sakura is upset that Sasuke doesn't like her. Sakura has zero emotional beats, and the ones that she does have are stupid. The extent of her inner turmoil boils down to being a shy kid who grew up into a somewhat vapid popular girl who's a little insecure and a massive simp. When you compare her to the rest, she sticks out like a sore thumb not only by her lack of powers, but also by a lack of true loss. Her parents are alive and fine. She was never traumatized by anything in her past or present, really. There's just no pain in her life like there is with these three. And you know what? There frickin' should be. At the core of everything, the reason I love this series so much is because Kishimoto makes his characters play my heartstrings like they're a bass guitar. He made me care about this guy, this child, this maniac who killed all of his friends in cold blood as a child, this lady, a probable sex offender, and Choji. He made me care about Choji. The first time we see Choji, he's thinking about eating a dog, and now I'm crying because I think he's dead. How did you do that? Sakura doesn't have anything deeper connecting to the rest of her team besides the fact that she's on the team. Sasuke and Naruto have similar pasts, the same goal of being the strongest, but different reasons for wanting that, making their rivalry, friendship, and eventual conflict feel natural. Sakura has nothing in common with either of these two besides a desire to get stronger. And even then, her drive is consistently shown to be nowhere near the level of the others. Here's an idea, and I'm just spitballing here. What if Sakura was an orphan too? What if she had actual pain in her life? What if she knew what loneliness or loss or regret actually felt like? It would be a lot easier to empathize with her in this scene if she actually knew what loneliness meant. But we know that she doesn't, so it falls flat. But even with the Sakura that we got in the story, the one whose backstory is being a shy kid instead of an outcasted orphan, her character maybe could have worked if her story actually went somewhere in part 1. But it's all setup and no payoff. And you know what? It's disappointing. It's hard to look at her in this moment in the Forest of Death and not think of what Sakura could have been. She was cool in this scene. It was the first time she was fighting on her own, and it made it seem like she was going to be a major player from here on out. Like we were finally going to be able to take her seriously. She's my least favorite character in part 1 by far. I don't think she comes off well in this part at all. Her character arc being such a mess, and the fact that she has no truly cool or emotional moments just leaves all the focus on the weird little things she does that, aren't so cool. Hey, remember when you left your best friend over a guy, made all your life goals and decisions around that guy, and then that guy left you unconscious on a park bench in the middle of the night and then didn't think about you again for like 3 years? Remember when you made fun of an orphan for not having parents in front of the guy whose parents were killed right in front of him? Remember when you almost made your closest friends murder you because you ran straight into their most destructive powers with your eyes closed? Remember how you told Naruto you'd find Sasuke as a team, but only after you literally made him promise to do it himself because you couldn't do anything to stop him because you spent the entire part not training at all? You said you wanted to catch up to this guy? It's been months, and you let him just teleport behind you and knock you out? He just puts you on a bench. You weren't found for hours. She'll be fine. Nothing bad ever happens to unconscious girls in a city park at night. You left your best friend for this guy, and then you had the audacity to go to the guy who you know likes you, the guy you made fun of for being an orphaned outcast, and make him promise to bring back your crush? Jesus Christ! And you know what? He does it, because he's a nice guy. He's not like you. What if Naruto was like you, huh? What if he was like you? Oh, look everybody, Naruto's trying to pass the Genin exam, because he wants to be Hokage. Here's his rival, Buglingi. Naruto's never beaten him. There's nothing special or cool about either of these two. They stopped being best friends because of a dispute over who was going to date Sakura, but Sakura doesn't care that they exist at all. Now they're competing to pass. Oops, they both lose, because actually they both suck and can't do anything. You did good, Naruto, says Iruka. You've never been able to draw against Buglingi before. That's right, says Naruto. I'm gonna be the Hokage. And then they sat on a bucket for 4 months. You think anyone would read that shit? No, that sucks. You suck. I know it's kind of silly to get this upset at what's clearly a moment of weakness for Sakura's character, but I don't care. Right now, she's putting a heavy emotional burden on Naruto, and I frickin' love this guy. I've seen this kid go through so much. I've seen him find out what love and acceptance means. I've seen him develop empathy for even the worst criminals, and you treat him like this? I don't care that you're sad. I don't care about you. You have no backstory. You have no powers. You know what to do, you just won't. You're obsessed with someone who doesn't care that you exist. You are a gag character who has no defining features. You started as a joke, and you never, ever overcome that in part 1. Giving Sakura anything in part 1 would have given her so much more as a character, but in actuality, part 1 Sakura is pathetic, weak, passive, and given no proactive direction to follow. She slipped through the cracks in the narrative and never caught up. She is the worst in part 1. But what about the time skip? I mean, wouldn't the time skip fix her? Well, you'll have to wait and see. Hey, come here. Get over here. You like any of these? Remember these? You like any of these? You want them in real life? Do you want them in real life? Why don't you stop by my little shop right here? Have a look around. Better get here quick, though, because supplies are limited. Follow here and here for updates about that. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you subscribe. See you next time.